All right, gentlemen, let's jump into some specific talk about the two guys that are in this race. The depth chart as it is, obviously they are going to have, three scholarship quarterbacks on the roster plus a walk-on. But the two guys at the top, they are going to be battling this out in Kenny Minchey and CJ Carr. Obviously, young group, not a lot of experience from a snaps standpoint, but both guys in this race have experience on this team. Yeah. As you mentioned before, CJ Carr is going to be in his fourth semester. Kenny Minchey is going to be in his sixth semester here at Notre Dame. So what you're lacking on maybe on field, you're not lacking in off the field part of the program.
And it goes even deeper than just the two in the battle. I mean, when you look at the overview of the position, it's obviously Kenny and CJ. We're going to talk a lot about them, but I think this is a great place to just mention Blake Herbert. Blake Herbert.
I was like, okay.
Wait. Is there some breaking news we haven't talked about?
Like, okay.
Blake Herbert, because, I mean, he's, Blake Herbert, it's the running ability, but, we saw Vince, you and I were joking at one of the practices. We were like, if somebody came here, an NFL scout came here, and didn't know who any of the quarterbacks were, or at least only knew about them on paper, knew of their reputations, didn't know what numbers they were. And you said, okay, who's this? Because Notre Dame had a senior, a junior, a sophomore, and a freshman in the spring, because when Steve Angeli was still there. And if you just said, who's the freshman, who's the senior, you would have not guessed anyone other than Blake Herbert was the senior.
From a physical standpoint,
He's got, he's like, this is him after a day of not shaving. He's 6'2 plus. He's 220 pounds. He's thick. He's put together. He's got an absolute hose for an arm. He's athletic. He's strong. Like, the physical tools for Blake Herbert are outstanding. He's just incredibly raw at this point in time, and he's young. So that's why he's not in the battle right now. But he is a guy that, if there's an injury to one of those two guys, he will be thrust into that number 2 role. So it is important to mention him. So that's why you just recruit talented players every year. Well, why did it really matter that you went out and got a talented quarterback when you've got CJ, Kenny, and Steve in there? Exactly this reason right here. One guy leaves, and then let's say whoever loses the battle this year leaves after the season. Now, all of a sudden, Blake Herbert's in a very important role for Notre Dame, and he's now say, okay, well, now I'm the heir apparent, but I'm the guy that's got to be ready right now to step up in case this guy goes down. That could be this year. I mean, Vince, you and I in past shows talked about how frequently it was for Notre Dame that they had quarterbacks miss time. I mean, they had quarterback miss time in 2010. They had a quarterback miss time in 2011. And I mean miss time, I mean like missed starts or the majority of a game, or at least had multiple quarterbacks start. They had 2 quarterbacks start in 2011, 2011, 2012. 2013, I believe Tommy restarted every game, but to remember, he got knocked out real early in the USC game that year. 2014, you had 2 different quarterbacks start when you consider that Malik came in for the bowl game. 2015, you had 2 quarterbacks start. 2016, you had 1 quarterback start. But he got knocked out of the Stanford game for a little bit. 2017, you had Brandon Wimbush missed the North Carolina game with an injury. You need Ian Book to start. You had 2 different guys start in 2018. And then the guy that started the year had to come back into the starting lineup in November on senior day because Ian Book got hurt against Northwestern the previous week. So, I mean, I could go on. Ian Book in 19 and 20 stayed relatively healthy. Jack Cohn battled injuries in 2021. Remember, he got knocked out of the Wisconsin game. That's why Drew Pine and Tyler Buckner came into that game. And then, Jack was struggling against Virginia Tech. Tyler came in, and then boom, Tyler gets hurt, and then Jack's got to go back in. Like, Tyler gets hurt in 2022, and you need to start 2 different quarterbacks. 2023, Sam was able to start every game, and Riley's able to start every game, which was a blessing. But there was a while there we weren't sure if Riley Leonard was going to be able to start, and continue to play when he got hurt against
Penn
Illinois.
State. And Penn State.
That's right. And he also got hurt against Penn State. That's a pretty big deal. So, that would be Blake Herbert stepping into a similar situation this year if there's an injury somewhere else and then the starter goes down. So it's really smart to have depth. And if that happens again this year at Notre Dame, then all of a sudden Blake Herbert's right there with that opportunity, along with Anthony Rizak, who's a pretty talented walk-on. And I do expect Tyler Buckner to end up back at quarterback. I do. That's just my expectation. That gives you more depth. That gives you a guy that has started games, has played. I mean, The guy that's got the most experience at quarterback by far is Tyler Buckner, who started 3 games and had a 300+ yard, 5 touchdown performance in a bowl game over a top 25 SEC team in a game where the offense scored 45 points. That's your emergency quarterback. So let's be real about something. If the staff didn't have supreme confidence in the talent of the 2 veterans, or the 2 old, the 2 guys battling, number one, they would have made sure Steve Angeli was happy enough to not leave. Number 2, they would have moved Tyler Buckner back to quarterback a long time ago and said, hey, this is a guy that's got, this guy, he served his punishment last year as a wide receiver. Let's move him back. But that's not, I think they're going to move him back as a exactly what I said, sort of an emergency quarterback situation. You have an injury, things happen, Tyler's there to kind of step in and say, hey, he can get us out of the ball game with his ability to run. That's all it is.
Yeah, and we were at enough practices where we all saw that Tyler Buckner was essentially the wide receiver's quarterback. I mean, he was throwing balls
playing lacrosse. He wasn't doing a whole lot of
football. You know what I mean? So like his arm's in shape. He can still, sling the ball and all those different things. It's just he was with the wide receivers all the time. You know what I mean? And so I would not be surprised at all, especially with the exit of Steve Angeli, to get another arm into that room. I mean, look, we all know that camp arm is a real thing and all of those different things. And so if you can have somebody else, throw in some of those drills and some of that, those other things, that's exactly what you're going to do. And so it would not surprise me in any way if Tyler Buckner was kind of almost, maybe not exclusively at quarterback, but like he's a camp arm. I don't know.
I think it'll ultimately be what they do.
Okay.
And that gives you a guy that can run the scout team in certain weeks. I mean, with all due respect to Anthony Rizak, I want Tyler Buckner running the scout team when they're getting ready to play Texas A&M.
Oh, yeah.
And Marcel Lee. I want him doing that when they're getting ready to play Navy and Marcel Reed. I want, you know what I mean? Like,
sure.
Anthony Rizak may be more of the option when you're going to play NC State because he's 6'4+, he's lanky, he's kind of built a little bit like CJ Bailey. And then that also gives you more chances to have Anthony Heert up with the quote-unquote varsity. I think it's good for Blake to get some scout team reps early. You want him to play, but you want to have the ability to bring him up at certain times.
Yeah.
And I think just having Tyler Buckner helps with that. So it helps solidify the room. The camp arm aspect is important to that, Vince.
Yeah.
Very important to that. But it's also, there's a lot of reasons why. And then Tyler's a veteran who I think can provide leadership to the younger players. I mean, Tyler's had to start at Ohio State.
Right.
He started in the Gator Bowl against South Carolina. He was a big-time recruit.
He started at Alabama.
He had all the pressure on him in 2022 that CJ Carr or Kenny will have on them this year.
Right.
That's a tremendous asset to have as long as everybody understands. We're not talking about Tyler Buckner becoming the starter or battling. We're talking about he is a great resource to have in that room.
Right.
And that alone is why I would say it might be good to, and he started at Alabama. Like this kid's played in some high leverage situations at Notre Dame. It would be smart to allow him in certain ways to share his experiences with these younger quarterbacks because he knows what it's like to be that big time recruit going into his second year of college where everyone's like, hey, they're going to be good this year because of him. And I think he can be a resource for that. So like when I think about the whole room, that's important to have before we really start getting into sort of, we'll break down the battle and then we'll get in each player. But like it is important to talk about there's some uniqueness to the room as a whole.
Do you want to add anything, Trevor, to the room as a whole?
No, you guys hit most of the talking points. Only thing I was going to add, Riley Leonard even reached out to Tyler Buckner last season to sit down and talk to him about, hey, what's it like battling adversity at a place like this? And we're talking about a kid and Riley Leonard who had significantly more starts.
Had beaten Clemson.
Yes. And he took Tyler Buckner out to lunch after that Northern Illinois loss. And was like, hey, man, I need you to kind of help me get level-headed here. What is this place truly like? And so Tyler Buckner could actually 100% provide that type of support to a much younger cast this season entering the 2025 season.
Speaking of the cast that is entering the 25 season, let's kind of break this thing down, and we'll go in class order, top to bottom. So we'll start with Kenny Minchey, And Trevor, I will throw it to you to start things off and just give me a sense of who is Kenny Minchey, what does he bring to the offense, and what would the offense look like with number 8 behind center?
Yeah, Kenny Minchey, I would say amongst quarterback competitions across the country, may be the most misunderstood quarterback entering a quarterback competition. And here's what I mean by that. A lot of people maybe just view his skill set similar to Riley Leonard's. And so there's a lot of people who are on the outside looking in that assume if you plug in a kid like Kenny Minchey, it's going to be like Riley Leonard 2.0, but with like a little bit stronger of an arm. That's not the case. Kenny Minchey is absolutely, Brian has said it so many times on this show, a pass-first quarterback. Don't confuse his athleticism to him just being a traditional dual threat guy. Will he see a few more design runs than what a CJ Carr would or what a Noah Grubbs would? I mean, yeah, but he's not going to have 187 carries like what Riley Leonard had last season. It's not that. We're talking about a kid with a really live arm. That was on showcase all throughout spring. That was in showcase in the blue gold game. I mean, he overthrew Will Pauling and Ben Minnick, two of the faster kids on the roster, from the opposite hash. I mean, we're talking about somebody who has a very, very live arm. And you go back and you look at his film from high school, the running aspect of his game wasn't really something he developed until he came into his athleticism when he arrived in South Bend. He's a very athletic kid, but he has a very, very live arm. So that's where I'm going to start with Kenny Minchey. I think he's misunderstood. I don't know what it is with him. I don't know if it's his background. I don't know if it's what people's expectations were maybe from last season. And now they think that the only way that Notre Dame can win is quarterback power on 3rd and 2. Then your quarterback has to rush for 17 touchdowns. It's not the case with somebody like Kenny. And that's where I start with him.
It's funny. The first time I remember watching Kenny Minchey scramble was in the blue gold, really looked like a runner, was in the blue gold game a year ago. I was like, yeah, okay. And then they ran it was a couple scrambles, and they ran an outside zone, like a designed outside zone that he scored a touchdown on. And you're like, okay, this isn't the guy that we saw in high school. And he would use his athleticism in high school to scramble around and buy time to throw. But I mean, if you look at his numbers, I'm actually going to pull up his stats as a junior and senior from when he signed with Notre Dame. Obviously I put that intel together, but here's what he had in 2022 as a junior. I think he rushed for less than 100 yards, but his whole career rushing statistics, he had 286 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns. That was his whole high school career. And so that's what I say. People are thinking that he's the next Riley Leonard, or he is like, Malik Zaire. That's not who he is. He's more Ian Book than he is anyone else in regard to where Ian would have some occasional design runs, but Ian was a very good athlete. Ian used his athleticism to make plays as a scrambler. And that's more of where Kenny will be. I think even his rushing touchdown in the Purdue game, was that a I thought that was a scramble. Or was that a designed run? I'd have to go back, and it was a designed run.
It was a zone read, wasn't it?
Okay. So he would pulled. Yeah, I have to go back and look at it, but he's not that dual threat guy. He is an athletic kid he's a pocket quarterback who's an athletic guy. He's not going to be if he's your starter, he's not like, okay, well, 3rd and 1, we're back to quarterback runs again. Occasionally, sure, but that's not who he is. But man, Trev, you talked about it. The arm talent is outstanding. And the big question on Kenny coming into really his 2nd season last year was, okay, Kenny's a very talented player. Nobody ever questioned that. There were some questions that I heard about him in the recruiting process, and then also some questions his freshman year of, it's not that he doesn't work. It's not that he has a great attitude. He's very loved. I mean, his teammates love Kenny Minchey. I've heard that from the minute he got here. Very well-liked kid. But the question is, how does he want to be great at quarterback? Because you guys both know, I don't care how talented you are. If you don't have that drive to work every day, Vince, it doesn't matter how talented you are. You're going to fall short. And the question was, does Kenny really care about being a great player? In a lot of ways, I think Kenny answered some of those questions last year with his attitude, with his work ethic, with his performance. And then, of course, the big question was going to be, how does he compete this spring? And it wasn't just CJ Carr's performance that led to Steve Angeli's departure. It was the combination of CJ Carr and Kenny Minchey in their performance. And so I think what Kenny did was Kenny showed that he earned the right this spring to say we're going to go into the fall and it's a real battle because of how he performed. I do think his running ability gives him a little something extra there, but it's primarily about what he does throwing the ball. And when we were at the Jersey scrimmage, guys, we saw that. Some of the throws he made, like he had a seam route. I believe he threw the seam up the seam route that got dropped by Jack Larson, I believe.
Yeah,
I think it was him. I mean, you point to last year's Vince, you talked about the go route this year they overthrew. Remember the go route he threw for a touchdown against Micah Bell to I think it was Micah Gilbert, or was it KK Smith? It was Micah, wasn't it? Micah Gilbert in the 2024 Blue Gold game. I believe that also was a far hash throw. So Kenny's shown that he can make some big time plays. The question is going to be, there's two big questions I have now about Kenny, Vince, and they've been consistent. Is number one, Kenny is a notoriously slow starter. The only time he hasn't done that was this year's Jersey scrimmage in any type of setting we've seen. And he's got to improve there. And he still has a tendency to make the bad turnovers. And we saw that in the Jersey scrimmage this year where Kenny was cruising. And I mean, I think it was like 2 plays before the pick. I think I looked over at you and I was like, dude, I think they're all playing well, but I'd say that right now, Kenny's probably played the best so far.
Yep.
Then he throws the pick that, if it's a scholarship cornerback, it's probably a pick 6. You go back and look at the pick he threw in last year's Blue Gold game where he just kind of chucks it up off his back foot, panics a little bit. He's got to eliminate that type of stuff. Some of that's just going to have to get worked out through experience, but some of that's also decision-making, and Kenny's going to have to improve some of that because when it's a battle between 2 really talented players, they're both going to turn the ball over at times. You want to avoid the bad turnovers. I said this, I don't view CJ's interception as a bad interception. It was a mistake. It was not a ball he should have thrown. I explained that, but a bad interception to me is you kill a scoring drive, you set the other team up for a scoring drive, or it's just dude, that was a terrible play. Like you threw the ball up. You didn't have a guy near it. You threw it off your back foot. That was just a sloppy play where you didn't look mentally like you knew what to do in that situation. You want to avoid those. And that's something that that Kenny's going to have to do a better job of. He did it in the spring game, I thought. And I thought his numbers in the spring game were not as good as I thought he actually played because he had a couple easy drops and the pressure wasn't always there. But I thought overall, Kenny's combination of arm talent, he's very smart. He's a very smart quarterback, picks up the offense very well. That's not going to be a question for either one of these two kids. But Kenny's always had a reputation as a really smart kid. You can have a lot of volume in the pass game when Kenny Minchey's your quarterback and CJ Carr's your quarterback. That's going to be a difference from last year as well. But I just think this is a kid, guys, that just push comes to shove. He's got a big time arm and he can make some throws that a lot of people can't make. And that's why he's in this battle is that the running ability is it's a cherry on top. That's what it is to me, guys. Kenny's going to win this job because of what he can do, reading defenses and throwing the football. That's what's going to win him this job.
So, okay, great transition, sir. It's almost like you do this for a living. You said that's what's going to win him the job. Well, I mean, there's a lot of people out there that think he's probably number 2, maybe going into it. Still competition, but maybe he's got some room to make up.
He's kind of
right?
1B.
Yeah, right. So he's got some ground to make up, going into the fall. So what does that look like as a coach, right? So we like to break it down. We come from a coach's perspective. So as a coach, Brian, what does Kenny Minchey need to do to kind of close that gap a little bit and then become the 1A guy in the fall?
Number one, start faster. You can't come out early in fall camp the way that you have in the past. You've got to come out hot right away. And that's just big picture, but also each practice. Consistency is a big thing for Kenny. And I talked to a source last year that was, I was talking about the 2 young quarterbacks and he was impressed with both of them, liked both of them. And the thing he said was, the thing about CJ Carr is he's just steady. You know what you're going to get every day. The thing about Kenny is there's days where you're like, dude, that guy's going to start for us at quarterback next year. And then there's other days you're like, that guy can't start for us at quarterback next year. That when you're the guy, you can work through some of those. This is the unfortunate thing that both of these young quarterbacks are in, is when you're just clearly the guy, Vince, you know this, you're allowed to work through some of those ups and downs. When you're in a battle with another very talented player and you don't have any sort of edge from experience or playing time, not any real edge in experience or playing time. Like Steve Angeli had a significant edge in experience and playing time, wasn't enough with the two younger quarterbacks. But it wasn't like significant in that he was like a full year starter or anything like that. If you don't have one of those advantages, guys, then the reality is you have to make sure that you're not, you know, like you can't have those ups and downs, and you better hope the other guy is too. Well, in this situation with what Kenny's going against, he's going against a guy that tends to be pretty steady. Kenny has more of the flash. When he's on, he's really good. When he's off, the offense sputters. We saw both of that in each of the last two spring games. And that's why C.J. Carr has led the offense. And, I mean, he led the offense on more scoring drives the last 2 years than either of the other two quarterbacks. There's a reason for that. Same thing with the Jersey scrimmages that we saw the last 2 years. I mean, just the offense just has moved better with C.J. because of that consistency. If Kenny can become more of a consistent player and then maintain the hot streaks where it's like when you come down from the hot streak, you're still pretty good. But when you're on the hot streak, you're like, okay, you're not stopping that guy. If he can do that, that's what gives him an opportunity to win the starting job, guys, because he's got all the arm talent to be a big-time quarterback, in my opinion. He's got the intelligence to pick up the offense at a high level, not just, okay, I know these 5 plays, but to just, you know, master the offense with more time in the system as a starter. He's got leadership characteristics. They're different than CJ's. They're different than what Steve's are, just like Steve's are different than CJ's and CJ's are different than Riley's. But he's got leadership qualities where the team will follow him if he wins the job. That's one thing I'm not worried about in this battle is I think the team will follow whoever wins the job because they're both respected, and Kenny is as well. He's a guy that if he wins the job, the team will follow him. And so he's got, you know, he can make any throw that Mike Denbrock will ask a quarterback to make. He throws a great deep ball. He's got accuracy. But again, that wavers. When he's on, he can be dude is Picasso when he's on. I mean, when he's off, he's finger painting. You know, like that's the thing here with Kenny is the consistency where it's you got to look like this guy more frequently. That's what he needs to do to win this job. And he's capable of doing it, guys. Like everybody knows my opinion of who I think is going to win the starting job. I won't be shocked if Kenny Minchey goes out there and just rips it up day after day. And you're like, dude, this is what I thought was going to happen. But have you seen this 8 kid slinging this football around every day? Like this is something special. He's got the ability to be that kind of player, but he's going to have to show it way more consistently. That's the thing for me, Trevor. I just need to see that version of Kenny. If I'm a coach, I need to see that version of Kenny far more consistently because that's what gets you beat. You come out there and you look great against Miami and great against A&M and then, you know, produce whatever. And then you go on the road against Arkansas and you throw 3 picks and you're missing open throws. And next thing you know, you get upset by a 2-2 Arkansas team because it's the ups and downs. That's what can hurt you when the town around you is great. That is what'll ding you is when you're now doing things that prevents the town around you from taking over. You're not the conductor anymore. You're now trying to go outside and you're trying to do, and you're hurting the team. That's the type of thing Ken's got to avoid. It's just that up and it's wild up and downs. Better this year than it was as a freshman. So now it's about taking that next step. And if he can do that, then this decision will be a lot harder for the Notre Dame coaches than what I think some people think that it'll be.
Yeah, absolutely. I echo the same things that you are talking about when we discuss on the field play. When you're in a quarterback competition that's this close, everything is on the table. You're evaluating on the field play, how you carry yourself on and off the field, what type of leader you are. It is no surprise to me whatsoever that the spring panned out the way that it did. I said going into the spring that I believe that there were going to be 2 quarterbacks that emerged, and this was going to carry over into the fall. For Kenny, he now has to show the coaching staff that he can be the guy, not one of the guys. Out of the spring, you just had to be one of the guys that was still in competition heading into fall. And he showed that he could do that. But that's going to be the next step in his maturation as the leader of this offense, one of the leaders of the team, is, hey, you have to go from being, like you said, everybody loves him, and I completely understand why. But when you're the starting quarterback at Notre Dame, you carry a little bit more of a heavier burden than, say, what the starting slot receiver at Notre Dame has to carry on a week-to-week basis. And so he's going to have to show a different level of maturation from, hey, I'm just one of the guys. You know, everybody loves me. Like, I have all the talent in the world, because he does. To now that has to evolve into, hey, I can be the guy. I can be the person that you can rely on when it's 3rd and 7 in a close ball game in the postseason, and you can put the ball in my hands and I'll go out and make a play. So that's going to be part of his evolution, and the consistency, you know, minimizing the highest of highs and the lowest of lows, because all young quarterbacks go through the ebbs and flows of, yo, that's why he's our guy. Then you have other moments like, okay, yeah, it's his first season starting. Mm-hmm. But as long as that highest of highs isn't a Heisman level performance, and the lowest of lows is that's who the starting quarterback is. If you can find somewhere in between that for your lows, they're going to be in a really good spot. But Kenny has all the potential in the world to take the job, and it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if he won because of his talent. But there's just some things that he's going to have to get cleaned up from now until August 31st.